Welcome to the Magical Salon, where two regular people, Amanda and James, explore mystical ideas and big questions. From books to pop culture, if it's a doorway to something deeper, we're probably into it. We're not experts, and maybe you aren't either, but that's kind of the point.
Welcome to the Magical Salon. This week, I will be your leading host, James, and I'm joined by...
And I'm Amanda, and I am. That's it.
I like that. It's good because it ties into our topic for the day. So today we're going to be talking about being versus becoming. So on its face, it's just two words, but if you think about the human experience, I kind of think you could argue it's two ways of looking at the world. You can be or you can become something else. And while there's a very subtle distinction, I think it's from a fundamental, intrinsic way that you're acting in the world, I think it's quite different. To kind of just give a little bit of background for where I'm coming from, when I think of being, I'm thinking about what already is. It's the eternal now and existence without striving. So to be peaceful, you just are. To become peaceful is an aspiration towards the future. What do you think the difference is between being and becoming?
Yeah, I think it's what you said, which is that they're two sort of, in some ways, opposing ways of looking at the world. Because if you're focused on being, you're focused on the present, whereas becoming is always coming from a place of striving. It's like, I don't have what I need right now, and you're very fixated on that. But there's also kind of this sense of, if I can only find what it is that I don't have, then I will be happy. And I think we kind of talked about that in a prior episode, where it's sort of like you're putting happiness or content or peace just out of reach and attaching all these usually external associations. Like, I will be happy when this specific thing happens for me. It's kind of caught up, in some ways, I kind of think it's caught up in the ego.
Well, so this might be a bit more personal, but I think it's relevant to this discussion. It's no secret that you are a writer on the pod. You've mentioned that and talked about your writing, and you can get bouts of enthusiasm, and you can kind of have like writer's block and difficult periods, we could say. But one thing that you and I have discussed is the idea of you are still trying to become a writer. That's how you phrase it. You're in the process. You view it as a journey. You're not at the end goal. And I think it's relevant to this because you're working from a becoming mindset, becoming a writer. I would argue you are a writer. So you are already a writer to be a writer. You just need to do your routine because you are a writer. People like creating, and creating is a way of saying playing in my mind. Like, as a kid, you're playing with action figures. It's literally just pieces of plastic, but you're imagining these battle scenarios, or Batman is fighting Superman and Superman's fighting the G.I. Joes. Like, it's all just made up stuff with what you have on hand. That's just creativity. It's being in the moment. And I think you can't be a dilettante. You can't be multiple things. At least societally, it's frowned upon to be more than just an accountant or a doctor or a cashier or a barista. It's like you are an occupation. I think the human experience, you can be more nuanced than that. And you can be a lot of different things at different points throughout the day. Like, you are not a monolith as a person.
Well, I think a lot of that kind of comes from the constraints of capitalism. If you are able to be creative, there's like two ways of being creative. There's, I'm really creative in my free time, and that's all it is. Or I'm creative and I've created a new occupation for myself, which is artist. And then there's all those things that are typically associated with occupations that, are now tacked on to that. So I think there are kind of different ways of thinking about creativity. Creativity for a lot of us is attached to achievement, not play. And I think that's sort of my problem.
I think becoming as a mindset, and I mean, I said it's the future looking, but I kind of think it's more than that. Like, becoming is you are always looking in the future. So even if you're doing something with your family at a ball game or doing your kid's ballet recital or whatever, you're not present because you're thinking about, oh, when I get home, I have to get this memo published for work so that I can promote it, so that I can become the CFO one day. You're not being fully present as a human. And I think that to me is why being here now, be here now, that phrase and that book, which is by Ram Dass, which is some like ex-Harvard professor. Well, he's dead now, but, and the power of a person is their attention and their presence, which I know you have had people discuss or remark upon your presence, specifically, Amanda, and how it's felt. And when you are present, it's noted.
Well, yeah, I think it's because most people, and I think part of it can be blamed on cell phones and things, but it's beyond just that. I think a lot of times when you're interacting with someone, you're in some ways interacting with like a shade of them as a person because they're not giving you their full attention. And it's hard to give someone your full attention because sometimes you're not occupied with your phone. You're like occupied with thoughts in your head. You're worrying about something and you're not able to fully be present. So when you are able to, I think people can feel that and it feels different. And I mean, just kind of on similar lines to the be here now thing. That's kind of like a principle in a lot of different spiritualities and religions. And even in Christianity, like, I mean, it's not really talked about, but there is like a quote from the Bible. I think it's from Psalms or whatever, like, be still and know that I am God. It's about stillness, right? It's about being present. And if you are present, then you're inviting the capacity for you to feel the divine. But that's not really, at least for me, was never like really hammed up in class or religion or whatever in my experience of it. But I think just kind of going back to what I was saying before about how I think your ego is what feels the need to become something because the world tells us like you need something to show for your life, whether it's buying a house, having kids, becoming a famous X, Y, and Z, or just achieving any amount of success, if you think about it, is tied up in becoming because you don't need to do anything other than just be. And part of being is like surrendering, but people are not typically very attuned to that. And in a lot of ways, even if religion and spirituality is telling you that's what you should be like, the dominant messages that we're receiving, like from TV and social media, basically say the opposite, like, oh, just get on that grind, the grind culture kind of thing.
So there's kind of a couple thoughts I had on that. When we're talking about being present as a phrase, it's not just being physically present. And I think that's an important distinction because to your point earlier, especially with phones nowadays, like growing up, I remember no phones at the dinner table, put your phone away, don't text. But now that's common. Like kids are in Chili's with iPads. They're there, like they're eating dinner as a family. But if the mom and dad are looking at their phone and the kids are playing on their iPads, like they're not consciously present, I guess. The mental roadblock is what do you call yourself? It's more like some people will do a hobby. Oh, I golf, but I don't golf enough to justify calling myself a golfer. If you never try to draw, you'll never become a drawer or a painter. At some point you have to start doing to become the painter, but you have to be a painter to become a painter.
It all kind of goes back to labels and how labels are sort of unproductive because I don't think what you should be trying to parse out is who can call themselves a painter or who can call themselves a writer because that doesn't really matter. But yeah, people do try and impose those frameworks both on themselves and on other people. I think more so it's like, I write. You know what I mean? Like, it should be as simple as that. Like, I don't even need to put the other part on it, which is I'm a writer, which I could also say, right? But it's just, I am doing this thing. It's more active and kind of a little bit apart from sort of the label. And then you kind of get into, oh, I'm identifying with this label too heavily. Like, I'm too heavily identifying as a writer. Like, why don't I just be, right? Like, that's an element of me, but I don't want it to be my main thing, right? Because I'm an expansive person. I contain multitudes. Going back to what you were saying about drawing, people think that art is pure talent, and that is not true. Yes, there's an element of talent, but really it's practice, consistency, and discipline that creates good art. And I often go down these rabbit holes where I'm like on TikTok and I'll see like someone will be like, this was my very first drawing I ever produced, and now this is my most recent drawing. And you go from like pretty crappy, or like not even crappy, but average, right? It's like maybe I have a prayer of creating something like that. And then, you know, it's like amazing, like their most recent work, but it's practice that creates that, right? In some ways, you have to be okay with being bad at something, but doing it for the love of it in order to ever get good at it.
Yes. And I think the way you get to that stage where you can be bad until you're good is by being in the moment and being present while doing it. Instead of, I want to be a writer, I wish I was a writer, it's just, I enjoy writing, I am going to write today. Or I am writing now. I'm being in the moment, this is what I want to do. Same for podcasting in this instance. Right now we're doing it. The weekly wisdom is your intro. I am. So we went to this like spirit fair locally and we got our aura photos taken, which is neither here nor there. At the end, they give you this little book and it's basically a mantra of I am. But when I got mine taken, the lady that did my reading or that like interpreted it for me, she was like, I am is the most powerful 2-word phrase because it's like the message you tell yourself is very important, which I think of as being, right? Being is I am. What are you currently? Like, how would you define yourself? She said, I always tell myself I am tired. To try and change the thinking, the way she's viewing the world, she's like, whoa, I now say I am a big ball of energy. One other thing that just is coming to mind specifically for me is I had to watch this webinar for work, and the person that was giving it was an authenticity expert. That was what they called themselves. That's ridiculous. But the point is, people make these bold, outlandish claims all the time about who they are, what they are being. People are too afraid to just make a claim and try and embody something.
Seems like people are too confident in doing that. They should be less confident in doing that. And in my mind, like, it kind of goes back to the quote where it's like, a name is but a story you tell yourself. But that's also true for like any label, really. If I call myself a writer, it's because I'm attaching certain associations of what that is to myself, right? Instead of just being like, I'm a person. It's kind of like, have you ever done those exercises? I remember doing one at work where it would be like, describe yourself without using, like without saying, I am a mother or a daughter. Like, I'm an accountant. Like, what would you say about yourself if you couldn't like have any labels like that? You know what I mean? In my aura reading photo, it had a bunch of pink, which is creativity. And she just like asked me a question. She was like, you are happiest when you're creating, right? And I was like, yes. Because she basically was talking about the power of now, because all you're doing is creating, which we've talked a lot about on the podcast. But it was just interesting because she also said the thing that I've always said about channeling. She said something to the effect of like, when you're being creative, you are like in tune with God and directly like tapping into that space.
Getting the aura reading, they don't claim to be like psychics or mediums or anything, but they're still like kind of reading your vibe, I guess you could say, which is tying into, so like a lot of great artworks or musical pieces or whatever, people will say like, I don't know where this came from. I woke up in the middle of the night with this dream and then I just wrote the manuscript. And it's like, wow, I was struck by like genius, which is a weird thought from to a being connected standpoint. Like, yeah, that person was tapped in. I don't know another way to express that is, like, how would you describe tapping in? Tapping into what? The mainframe, the subconscious, to God?
Yes, I think like however you want to think about it, whether it's tapping into God, the divine energy around us, the universe, like people have different ways of sort of conceptualizing it. It's all the same thing to me. You're tapping into something greater than you, but specifically it is beyond you, right? There's a divine element to it. Like, I think genius is God. Like when people have moments of genius, that's channeling like direct revelation come to life in some ways.
It's interesting because God is a creator ultimately, the conception of it. So yeah, you are like God when you yourself are creating. I think the interesting thing, because you keep mentioning ego, being in some ways implies the dissolution of separate. So it's kind of getting rid of your ego, or not viewing ego even as itself. It's kind of, goals are just, instead of having a goal, you're just aware. You're not striving. You're already whole, basically, I guess is what I'm trying to. When you're being present, you're just content, or you don't feel without. You don't feel like you're missing something and that you need to be improving or bettering yourself to become something else. Becoming, in some ways, implies you are not already whole and you have a gap.
Well, yeah, I mean, multiple things to say there. I think part of the problem, from my perspective, and this may be a hot take, it's just that, as we've spoken about, I believe the real lack in society is a spiritual lack. People are not feeling in touch spiritually, whether they recognize that or not. I think that's the missing element that people are seeking for, or seeking, right? I think that people sometimes, when they don't know what it is that they're looking for, they make a pit stop in self-improvement land, like self-improvement, self-help land, which I think, while there's some stuff you can learn there, I think it always implies that you are lacking, and if you can only do a few core things, then you can become something great, right? But that's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about here. Society is always saying, like, you should always be in the process of improving yourself. There's always something that you should be working on. Everyone's a work in progress. But I think sometimes, and yeah, are there things that everyone could be working on? Yeah, but that's kind of different than the way they present it in like self-help books. Like, oh,
here's the 8 tips to be a super hyper productive and effective communicator.
I think they're attempting to address that gap that you're talking about. And it's interesting to see how it's obviously present and a lot of people are feeling the gap, leading to this rise of these self-help, self-transformation sections and web courses and weekend seminars and all of these different things you can go to transform yourself overnight, to reinvent yourself. Becoming is something you can sell people. Buy my book, become rich. Eat this food, become skinny. The culture societally needs you to always, like this. So you have on one hand people, they are most content and happy when they are just being who they are with what they have. That's how people thrive. But then you have a society and like a cultural machine and monetary system that survives on selling stuff, claiming you don't have what you need. And it's basically inventing wants and then pretending and repackaging them as needs.
what capitalism tells you is that in order to fill the lack, you just need to buy more things, or you need to buy the right things. And if you can only figure out which things they are, then you'll be happy. But again, it's filling that same void, which can never be filled with material goods, because that's not really where the lack is stemming from.
I think it's interesting because in my mind, there is a distinction between religion and self-help. Like, I view self-help as a bit scammier. They're obviously trying to sell me stuff, because it's never even just a self-help book. It's like, oh, come to my webinar, or here's a journal I sell for you, or this is my trick.
But people like Joel Osteen are hacking their shit in religious settings too. So there's definitely crossover.
I would say he's kind of falling into the self-help bucket, not from a purely religious perspective. But like, if you think of a church's point, most of the time they give you the Bible, right? They're like, this is the rule. Like, I'm giving you this because it works for me.
Are you familiar with Zen koans?
Zen koans, yeah.
Zen koan, for the listeners. It's a paradoxical anecdote or riddle used in Zen Buddhism to demonstrate the inadequacy of logical reasoning and, most importantly, to provoke enlightenment. So basically, it's meant to provoke a moment of direct revelation in you. That's really the purpose of Zen koans, because I think people read them, including myself, and I'd be like, I just like don't get it. I have no idea what it's talking about. But that's because you're not supposed to intellectually be able to get it. It's supposed to, in some ways, make you feel something so that you might have a eureka moment of some kind. And often they aim to dissolve duality, which you mentioned earlier. So you can react to this in real time.
Everybody that listens will also become profoundly awakened, enlightened, whatever.
You never know. Okay. Show me your original face before you were born.
I mean, and immediately it's making me think of like reincarnation or the afterlife or the place you go after you die that you were also at before you were born, if that makes sense. If you view it as a cycle, you're returning to source. But then also like show me is a very real world thing. Be authentically you without the preconceived notions, basically, is another way you could view it.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's trying to show the one that's underneath of all of duality. So if you use the Tao or like a divine energy that's permeating through everything, the face before you were born would be basically just a ball of energy, which to your point is also what you return to when you die, and would also be, if you believe in reincarnation, the face before you were reborn again, right? Because it's the same face. And it's not a face at all, right? And I think that's in the way that people really conceive of it. But I also think like the show me, the fact that you stress that is interesting, because it reminds me like, show me this. It kind of ties into vulnerability and being soft and not hard, which is more like water, right? Do you have the courage, to your point, to look at your original face and to display it at all times, which is, you have to be super enlightened to be able to do that.
The doing and the being through time, like to be enlightened all the time is how you become Buddha, or how Buddha is Buddha because Buddha is always Buddha. But the idea of becoming is it's existing in time. Like as of right now in time, I'm viewing myself in the past, present, and future. And I'm telling myself I'm on a journey and I have to get somewhere. And it's a future state mentally even. Maybe I can just sit here under the tree like the Buddha until enlightenment hits me. I'm not going anywhere physically, but internally, my soul is going somewhere, basically.
Because I was thinking about it, because you mentioned the Buddha. For me, I always wonder, like, did the Buddha see himself as super enlightened? Would any really holy person see themselves as pure enlightenment? Or would they also think that they still had things that they needed to work on? It's an interesting question, because in my mind, like, each moment leads to the next. You find one step and then you wait for the next one to appear, sort of. If I'm being in every moment, if I'm able to do that, concentrate on this moment, fully be in it, then move to the next moment, I'm fully in that moment, I would be enlightened all the time. If I was able to do it at all those points, I would become Buddha, right? If I'm able to be all the time.
We talked about this earlier, but now it's hitting me in a different light. It's so much harder to be all the time in the modern world. Like, I think that's undeniable. Like, your telephone, all of this external noise and stuff is intruding on your being, bothered all the time by these things that suck you away from the present moment.
Well, and I think, just as people, if we can put the work off until tomorrow, we pretty much all will. So if I have a becoming mentality, well, tomorrow I'm going to do all the things that I'm currently not doing that I need or want to be doing. That's going to be tomorrow. But then tomorrow comes and it's tomorrow again is when I'm going to start. So, I mean, David Hawkins and his idea of the map of consciousness, like he basically says that whatever level of consciousness you're at, you don't move much beyond that over the course of your entire life. And I just don't believe that, because I think even people like the Buddha have proven that wrong, because and obviously he's a special case, but still, it's like, I just think that people more so move more fluidly through the levels. So you might be operating at a higher level of consciousness, then something happens, and then you're operating lower down there on the levels of consciousness. And then you're like, oh man, yeah, I shouldn't be doing that. I need to really remember what matters and just be. And then I'm able to move up higher. So I think it's more fluid than people imagine, which is also why it is so hard to be at the highest level pretty much permanently.
It's tricky because, so how would the Buddha exist today? Would the Buddha be allowed to watch TV? That's a silly question. What would Jesus do? Would Jesus watch TV? Nowadays, most people are being consumers. The idea of becoming, to your point of pushing it off, it's like taking the idea of the eternal now as there's always tomorrow. So I don't need to do anything now, I'll do it tomorrow. But you can say that forever. So just like the person that believes in the eternal now might get a lot done and manifest a lot, the person that lives in the eternal tomorrow will do nothing their entire lives. Because they never took any steps, because they never cared. Because they're like, I'll just do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. Then they look up one day, oh shoot, I'm 85 and I've done nothing with my whole life. Where did the time go? I said I was gonna do all of this stuff and I never did anything.
I do like the phrase eternal tomorrow, that's good. But I would also just kind of counter and say, it's one thing if you want to be doing things and you're denying yourself it, if that makes sense. Like you're not even trying because you're afraid to fail, sort of thing. Just on the face of it, I would say, you don't have to do anything, right? You don't have to do a single thing in this life. There's nothing that you have to do. And that's a freeing thought if you can really wrap your mind around it, because everything that's forced upon you is it's all made up. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just be here in this moment. That's it.
It's funny because I understand what you're saying, but I also know the societal reaction to that too. Because that's completely anathema to society's story, right? That's what you actually need to do. It's kind of the internal tug and pull that everybody's grappling with. It's I'm supposed to be doing more and more, but I also know I don't need any of this, and I'm doing stuff for the wrong reasons. But that's what everybody's doing, including people I look up to and love, and they are people I want to emulate, and that's how they did it. So does that mean that's what I need to do?
Yeah, okay, two things to that. First, I think society has labeled relaxing as lazy. So if you're relaxing or you're not doing anything actively, you are now lazy, which is the opposite of what you want to be labeled as in the system. I also was kind of thinking about this idea of transformations, which I think people are really obsessed with. I'm thinking about makeovers, house transformations, even glow ups, and the idea of that. It seems I get it, because you get so absorbed in the story and you're like, wow, look at that before and after, but it misses the work that goes into every single moment of making that actually happen. And I think being able to show the work, people are just so primed for easy fixes. It's you got to put in some effort, but it's what you get back is so much greater, and that needs to be sort of relayed a little bit better. Yeah, is it a lot of work, but it's so worth it, right? And that's the difference.
But you see how that's a hard pitch, right? We've gotten so much materially better in a very short amount of time, and I don't think people appreciate it.
So, question then, do you think we're spiritually backsliding?
Yes. And I think part of what you're saying is why. Because the internet, so to your point, it is satisfying to watch those videos and see a time lapse of, even like they'll build a skyscraper in 1 minute on your phone. It took 5 years and it's edited into a minute, and you watch it. They clear out the ground, they put up this, and then boom, you're looking at the tallest building in the world. Super satisfying to watch. Well, it is satisfying to do it. When we do minor house projects, or even like redoing a bedroom or cleaning something, sometimes you're like, wow, it looks a lot better. I'm happier. The space is better. I am better because of doing this and participating in this. But now you can get that feeling without doing any of it. And that's the dissolution. You can get a feeling with no effort, and that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, the effort and feeling, they should be kind of in tandem. And in some ways, you can't get a specific feeling unless you put in a certain amount of effort.
Well, two things. One, I'm not sure I would say that I think we're spiritually backsliding, because is it true that more people went to church back then? Like, if you pick just really any time point behind us, yeah. But I don't think that means people were more spiritually like awakened than they are now. I think, I mean, to be honest, it might fall along similar lines, for example. And then the second thing I think is just like social media and the internet, I think actually does change your brain's chemistry and the way that your neurotransmitters work and like release whatever that is. Like it's almost like drugs, it seems like, because it's like if I get a specific feeling from watching a bunch of TikTok videos, one after the other, then what if my brain can't get that feeling except for through watching those types of videos?
I think that is literally proven, like what you're saying.
We'll fact check it in the show notes. Do you have any specific moments when you felt like you really were embodying being?
I would say no, because I think that kind of misses the point.
So cheeky little answer you gave me.
Well, when I'm really being, I'm just so much being.
Yeah, that's such a pompous act. That's a horrific answer. Do you have any final words? Keep being a listener.
Yeah, I was going to say, be a person. Try and look at your original face. And as Adya Shanti says, the truth is you already are what you are seeking.
Good RV Shanti.
Yeah, I totally butchered that, but
I slurred it, so that's going to be because